Buenos días. Buenos días. Hablo un poquito de español, pero muy terrible. Entonces es en inglés. That's it. We're done. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a great week. We had the opportunity to open our location here in Uruguay, and today we're going to talk a lot about how we're using AI to build products. So we're going to get into the details of how you build new products, new innovation using AI, and in particular using Gen AI. So before we get going, I want to spend a bit of time giving you a bit of background on what UKG is, so do you understand the B2B context in which we're using AI. So, first thing, what we are doing is we offer software to help companies realize their full potential. It's a human capital software. And we do it in a way where we put the people at the center of everything we do. And that makes it very, very interesting when it's time to build products. So what we try to do, and we love Great Place to Work, we ended up loving it so much that we bought the company, and now we have the insight of Great Place to Work to put into our product, and we are using it with Gen AI, which I'll come back to in a second. We have a lot of products, lots of them, and then some of them are in workforce management, some of them are in payroll, some of them are in recruiting, some of them are in performance management, and that is important as we go into the Gen AI in a second. So 15,000 people, our latest location here in Uruguay, and what's really exciting is we already have almost 100 people, and we're hoping to build a location to 300 to 400 people over the next couple of years. So we're making a big investment in the location. We believe in the quality of the talent, and we want to do it in a very different way. We want to do it in a way that it is a center of excellence for some of our products. It's not a place where we simply have engineers building technology based on requirements that come from other places. We want to have mixed teams of designers, product leaders, and engineers building product. And we're already doing that, and I'll show you that in a second, using AI. So, all right, let's get into the fun part of the presentation now that you have the context on what is UKG. So, AI is not a new idea. I did a PhD 30 years ago at Stanford. We talked about this stuff. It was happening. It was the same set of stuff. This overnight success materialized not in the last 6 months, but it was a series of step-by-step improvement that were done to bring this to life. What's different now is the compute power, the tooling that you have, and the availability of data to curate and do some pretty amazing things. And then ChatGPT, which is a toy. Let's be very clear. ChatGPT is a fun toy. Bard is a fun toy. It is a toy. Powerful toy that released the imagination of people, gave them the opportunity to think about new things. And that's why we are at the verge of a new paradigm shift. Some of you are older. There was one that happened when we introduced the PC and Excel, and it changed the whole back office stuff. Then we had the internet and HTML5, and that changed a bunch of other things, and that was pretty exciting in 2000. Then we had mobile. You can move stuff around. This is as big. This is as big of a paradigm shift, and I'll talk to you about the things we're going to do about it. Now, for UKG, we've been playing with AI since 2015. We have 2,500 AI models in production today. 8 million people every day are using AI with our products. It's not a new idea. What is new is the following, is the speed at which this technology was adopted. In 2 months, we got 100 million users. That is what is different, and that's why this is a paradigm shift. That's why we're seeing all this level of excitement, and every article is about this. Now, we think it creates an opportunity to democratize AI. And we believe it so much that one of the things we did at the beginning of the year is we began to run hackathon to try to get as many people exposed to this. Not just in technology, but across the whole company, and I'll come back to that. So out of the 1,500 people at UKG, 1,000 of them, 1,100 to be exact, are already using Gen AI in some way, shape, or form to improve our products. And that's pretty cool. We believe it's so important that we're taking existing products, our scheduling, our forecasting, our career designer, our pulse. We're building new products using Gen AI. As a leader of our product, I went back to the team and I said, time out, everything put on hold. We need to rebuild our roadmap and think carefully what we can do using this technology to transform. So we didn't wait for 2024 roadmap. We did it in mid-flight, and there's a bunch of stuff that's happening, including the Great Place to Work hub built in Uruguay, which I'll talk in a second. We also think it's going to change the way engineers are going to do their work, and we're retooling our engineering processes. We're using GitHub Copilot to do certain things, et cetera, et cetera. We also think it's going to change the way support, service, marketing, even legal is going to get done. So it's an overall transformation of UKG that's happening. And we're going long on this technology because we believe in its transformative power. So now let's go into what are the challenges of doing this in real life. We're a product company. We need to put this in the product, and we're going to have millions and millions of people using it. And there's some real issues in doing that. So I'm going to give you 5 topics, and all around augmented people intelligence. We think it's really, really, really important. If we make this technology a black box, that only a few guru can know how to use it, we're going to have a bunch of problems. It's going to go the wrong way. We're going to have regulators across different countries come in and change the way this is being deployed. It's going to be a mess. So we think it's really important to make the people part of the loop, and I'll talk a bit about that. We think it's really important to be ethical and transparent about how we're using data, how we're building the models, and what we're allowing these models to do. We think it's going to change the way we're interacting. This is a paradigm shift in the user interface. So we told all our designers, let yourself loose and go think differently about what interface is going to look like. Is it going to be a bunch of menus that you go down and you don't know where to find stuff? Or are we just going to have an open box everywhere? The answer is neither of those. It depends on the use case. So we need to be smart and do the proper user research to understand. We think there's a real issue with scaling. This is going to be costly to execute. These models cost a fortune to run. And all these wonderful startups who are getting money right now, they're going to run out of money because you can't pay the bills. These models are incredibly expensive to use. And I'll talk about some of the things we're doing to try to make that easier. We think there are new skills, and we're not going to hire the same folks that we used to hire because we think we need different skills moving forward. And I'll double click on that in a second. And then at the end of the day, it's all about data. The one who controls the most data, the most proprietary data, has an advantage because they can build models that others can't build. Because again, ChatGPT, Bard, or toys. It's basically reading the internet. And it's exposed to all the things the previous guy was saying, hallucination and blah, blah, blah. So what you need is you need finely tuned model for the use case you need, but you need to do that in a way that's economical and thoughtful and organized, ethical, and all that kind of stuff. So those are the 5 things I want to talk about. Let's talk about responsible AI. We need to be very, very careful as an industry and technology. We've had, and I'm an optimist. I love technology. You didn't see me when this robot went. I was running around like a little child. This is fun. I love technology, but we have a responsibility, and we have forgotten too often that responsibility. And we have created products that we don't understand the second, the third, and the fourth order. So it's really, really important to think very carefully about the impact this technology is going to have. You can look at our website, but you can look at Microsoft's website, Google's website, and others. We are all beginning to think about what does it mean to be ethical. It's incredibly important. You need to think about the data that you're using and that you don't institutionalize bias. Go on ChatGPT and look for, ask for pictures of old person. it will take you to the 100 pictures to get somebody of color. That is a problem if a whole portion of the world doesn't recognize themselves. It is a real problem. So you need to be very thoughtful about the curation of data and how you avoid unfair bias. We're in the human capital business. Like, we're not running first to say, we're going to do candidate matching. Do you want to be interviewed by a robot? Let me tell you, what it will do, it will institutionalize all the biases that already exist. You need to be very nuanced and very thoughtful. We think it's important to make sure that we create transparency and people understand the model driver. And there are ways to do AI such that you understand the driver behind it. And most people right now are not moving there, and there's a way to build software to do that carefully. You need to be thoughtful about who owns the data, because it's going to happen. The European community is going to come back and say, hey, you scraped the entire web. What about content ownership? Oh, it's buried in the model with 15 billion data points. Sorry, good luck with that. So we need to be thoughtful. And again, if you are multi-model, and I'll talk about that in a second, you do some pretty interesting things. All right, so first thing you need to think very carefully if you're building products is what is your ethical AI set of principle to build stuff that's going to help humanity, not damage humanity. Next one, and by the way, here's a great example, if my clicker works. Okay, this is an example of keeping the person in the middle. So you want to have a performance review with your manager. That's a good thing, usually. Doesn't happen all the time, but let's assume you do. And you have a Gen AI tool that's there to try to help you do that properly. Well, a good way to do it is you look at the work that this person has done, you look at their LinkedIn profile, you look at the different jobs, and you infer a bunch of things this person should know, but never bothered putting into their profile. So if you're a DBA, you may know SQL. So good guess. You're likely to be the case. But if you stop and just say, I'm going to guess, which is what Gen AI is. What AI is just guessing, just smart guessing. But if you do it without putting the human in the middle to validate that information, to confirm that information, you're doing a disservice to the person. So think about building products in the way where the human has an ability to augment, support the application of that technology. So that's an example of augmenting the person and not replacing the person in some of the stuff we're building. And my clicker doesn't want to work. It's really awesome. That's not Gen AI power. It doesn't want to move forward. Oh, here we go. Next one is the UI. Okay, the UI, we have a paradigm shift. So we need to be very thoughtful if we're a software builder, what's the UI we're going to do? So imagine I have 44 teams building products. 44 teams. They're doing all sorts of wonderful stuff. They're waking up in the morning. They all want to use Gen AI. They're all going to go out there and do some cool stuff. But if I don't give them some guidance, if I don't spend time saying, here's the way we think users are going to consume information, and here's the right way to do prompt engineering, we're going to have a problem. So we're spending a lot of time thinking through what's the right way to design these interfaces to take advantage of this. So for a designer, if there are designers in the space, this is a golden age. This is a really fun moment. You have an ability to change the way people are going to interact with computers. Very, very fun. So here's a bunch of examples. Look, they all look the same. This is our workforce management product, where a frontline worker comes in the morning and wants to kind of clear up a bunch of tasks, because that's what we do, scheduling. All right? Now I'm going to start to touch on this thing. It has the made in Uruguay example. I told you that we love Great Place to Work so much, we bought the company. What Great Place to Work is, it's a company that runs around and certifies great companies. The companies who have the certification, one of them over there, the law firm, is a Great Place to Work certified company, when you have that badge, when you're certified, it demonstrates that some of your work practices lead to better outcome, more engaged employee, more better financial results. So what we decided to do is take that data from millions and millions and millions of companies and then bring that into a new product that we're launching this year. It's built here from the ground up, and it's focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So we're going to help companies find ways to create better teams informed by practices that we have seen make a difference in the world. And that's going to be available in November this year. So you should be proud. This is made in Uruguay, one of our latest and greatest products. Some of the folks are there. Thank you, guys. You're awesome. And this is another picture of what that looks like. What's cool about it is to infer some of these practices, we're using AI. We're consuming all this information, and we're surfacing that information. In this version, you need to go to the thing. In future version, it's going to come in the flow of work. You're a manager, you log in the morning, you're in your tool, and it says, hey, I've noticed you haven't talked to these following employees. Wouldn't it be great to have a conversation on how they're doing? Or, by the way, your recruiting funnel looks pretty clunky and mostly people of a certain type. Maybe you want to diversify because we know having different opinions and different style and different ways of thinking leads to higher performing teams. That's what's going to happen with this over time. It's really exciting stuff. All right, it goes beyond that. It goes into, imagine this is a big piece of software. It needs to talk to other software. So there's all these APIs. There's a bunch of engineers who write these APIs, write these API codes, blah, 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 blah. All the usual stuff that we all love to do. But now we're using Gen AI to write the interface. It's pretty cool. Like here, it's a real actual example. The left one, we're asking it to use an API to go find an employee ID and dump it into an Excel. Now, we didn't tell it about the API of Excel. It went and found in Python the library to do this. It consumed our API documentation. It stitched the two things into a Python code, and voila, all done in 5 minutes. It's pretty sweet. It gets even better. On the next example, we asked it for the name of the employees. Well, we don't have an API to pull the name. You need to go through the ID. And it figured this out on its own. So now we have a whole new way to build interfaces to products, and we can augment the way these APIs are done. It's pretty sweet, and that's coming, and that's going to be part of everything we do. So now the dark side of all this, there are many dark sides. I talk about the ethical one. Look at the size of these models. They're just growing and growing, and hey, the bigger the model, the better. I think we're probably reaching a point where we've demonstrated that big is big, and we need, and by the way, look, it doesn't get much smarter, right? You can still do a lot of mistakes, and it is still prone to hallucination. What we now need to do is we need to get smart about training these models. We need to use the right level of data and do it in a way that is built for purpose. And what we call, and others too now, multi-corpus, multi-model. It's a very powerful concept. It's the fit-for-purpose model because these LLMs are too big. They're too costly to use. So you need to use the same capabilities and curate the right data to meet the needs that you have. And in our case, what that looks like is we're going with a 3-layer cake. So the bottom layer of the cake, and we work with Google. We think Google's pretty cool, but OpenAI is fine too. The bottom is the large language model that's trained on the internet. That's good. It gives you, by the way, all these models do is predict the next word, right? I mean, let's not get too fancy here. This is a big word guessing machine. And it's really good at it. And it does the next word, the next word, the next word. And it does pictures and tells you what the picture is. And so it's a guessing machine. Really smart guessing machine. Now, that first layer is the world, what everybody has access to. Then what is going to happen is there are going to be purpose-trained models for each product provider. So we're building our own. There's a scheduling model. There's a recruiting model, blah, blah, blah. That is great, and it's trained on our data that we are curating across the Great Place to Work. We're using the Great Place to Work data. And we think the third layer is going to be using the customer's data and giving customer context and the ability to control their data. So, very powerful concept, and it allows you to manage this scaling issue and the cost issue a bit. Doesn't make it all easy. It gets pretty complicated. Again, we live in Google world. This is stuff that's already available. This is the B2B world. Again, I'm not talking the ChatGPT, you got an API, send something in. When you're in the world of selling software and needing to validate, you need a whole lot of machinery in the back end to move these models through different stages and curate and update. Let me give you an example. We love the idea that we're going to consume all our customer support tickets. That's a lot of information. We get 630,000 tickets a year. Let's deploy Gen AI on this thing. And let's figure out what are the patterns so that we can get better at resolving their issue and we can inform the next generation of product. This is great. Let's train it, let's train it, let's train it. Spend all that money, thousands of dollars. And then we release a new version of the product. You can't just say, well, here's the new batch of tickets we are receiving. Let's put in the model. We need to say, let's kind of throw this model away and let's go build another model with the latest information. And that's another thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So we need to put in place that machinery. I'm on this advisory, CTO advisory group for Google. There's 15 of us. The main topic of conversation is not the power of the models. Nobody cares. It's the same stuff. So for those of you who are super excited about building more model, stop. The world has enough model. What we need is super smart engineering to figure out how to curate these models, how to manage the model, how to get the data to flow properly, how to have a feedback loop so that the model don't drift. That's hard engineering. That's where the magic is. It is not the next PhD in the new model and debating the accuracy of something. That's interesting, but not that interesting. We're like in real-world application land now, and we need to scale this thing fast so that we can do some pretty exciting stuff. So, new skills. I've touched on this before. We're shifting our recruiting. We're shifting our recruiting. We need more data engineering. We need more ML ops. That's really part of the magic. We need to train the whole company on being prompt engineers. So we're building our internal program to deploy this, not just with the engineering team, but across. We want our marketing folks. We want our HR folks. We want everybody to get smart because there's a different way to engage with these interfaces, and we want people to know this. And then we need to make sure people rethink the processes. Listen, if I can build all these API automatically, I may not need this whole army of service people, right? I may not. Or at least if I do, they will do something else. So we need people who are willing to rethink what this is going to look like and reimagine the world using this technology. So, last thing I'll say is operationalizing. I've touched on a bit of this. It's multi-model, multi-corpus, all sorts of fancy stuff. But look, we need to move from a world where we're building pure model to having a system to manage models. And we need to have the feedback loop so that your models don't drift, that your model remain updated, and do that in an economic way, leveraging all the things that I've told you before. It needs to be ethical with pre- and post-processing layer. We need to make sure that we're very, very thoughtful about tuning them while they're operational. So there's like a whole machinery to be built, and we're only halfway there. We're in the engine room trying to plug stuff and do the best we can. So let me just wrap up. That's lessons from the real world. Make sure this thing is focused on people. Keep the people in the middle. make it ethical, be transparent about what you're doing, think about the new interaction model that you have moving forward, and think about scaling. This is not going to be an easy road that we have. It's very expensive, and we're going to need very, very thoughtful people, and many of the startups who are trying to use this are just going to run out of money. Like, that's guaranteed, and that's fine for me. I'm just going to go buy the startup and get the talent. So let them learn and figure things out. New skills, invest in new skills, not the same people, and I'm not going along on mathematical modelers of PhDs, of things like that. I need real-life people in the engine room who want to build this thing for the future. And then think carefully about your data. It's going to be a competitive advantage. If we want to train your model, you need proprietary data, because everybody else is going to have ChatGPT. Everybody else is going to be trained on the internet, and there's not going to be enough. Thank you.